Well, like with the Free State Project, last time I brought it up to Malice, I was like, "Hey, are you going to Pork Fest?" You're like, "No." I'm like, "How dare you?" I think we're going. I think we're taking this RV to Pork Fest.
Yeah. If we can get Starlink,
we can, and I'll get it, and don't worry about it.
That wasn't a knock against the Free State Project. That was a knock against me being in the woods.
Okay.
I just want to clarify that. I'm a big fan of the Free State Project.
Hey, Michael, we're going shooting Saturday. Come on.
Yes.
We're getting vaccines?
Different kind of shooting.
And we're going to bring barbecue down, right? Are we bringing barbecue down?
Did I get you barbecue today?
You did, from Terry
amazing.
Black.
I haven't had it yet.
It's amazing.
Blaire, are you going to bring your pink AR?
I can do that.
Yeah.
I got barbecue.
She's got one.
I'm down.
I got barbecue for you.
I want to go to the woods with you though, because I asked
Thursday
you to do that
too,
the
and
other day.
everything.
I know it sounds
We're
like
gonna
a nightmare.
we're gonna go down and
if you want Rudy's, we'll get that.
We should. Yeah, we could do Rudy's.
So,
whatever.
So you think like a statewide school choice initiative is where is the next step of shattering the mold?
Sounds good.
I
Alex.
think we need a national free state kind of thing.
Yes.
We need people at the local level to start voting only for their local candidates who agree with certain principles of freedom, liberty, individual responsibility.
I agree. We need a litmus test for liberals, conservatives, gay, straight, whatever. Do you support the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, everybody's rights? Let's get past the labels.
Who's going to be this is nonsense. Who's going to be putting this litmus test into practice?
They do it in New Hampshire.
They do it in New Hampshire. New Hampshire has the highest amount of homeschoolers per capita than the entire United States. They have some of the highest IQ. They have They have some of the highest machine gun ownership.
Stop. This is nonsense.
Machine gun.
You're
full
of New Hampshire is
I talk to gay people, straight people, black people, white people.
That's
they
great.
all want freedom.
No,
man.
they don't. You're full of shit because you saw what happened to the lockdowns.
Why
if they all wanted freedom, we wouldn't have the lockdowns. That's a complete lie.
Stop the lockdowns.
What do you mean stop?
Florida stopped the lockdown.
Yeah.
Wait, no, Michael.
And why are you so pessimistic, man?
I'm not pessimistic because I'm thinking if you think the salvation is going to be voting in the right people, you're completely delusional.
We culturally fight at every level.
Alex,
voting is one aspect.
Alex, he's talking about the lemmings, the millions of lemmings in this country that bend the knee to the global elite.
And to the Constitution.
Okay, so what do we do about them?
And they don't want freedom.
You have to create systems that work around them.
So Drew Hernandez, what do we do?
Which means non-democratic systems.
Yeah.
I think what does that mean, non-democratic?
Meaning systems that don't depend on getting majority of simpletons to agree with you.
No, I agree. If I'm a Republican in the Republic sense, if 51% want to enslave me, they don't have a right.
But if it's 85, it doesn't matter. I don't care how popular it is. My rights are not up for discussion, let alone a vote. And Luke, the reason I was disagreeing with you is
so mad, Malice.
I am mad because there's a war in our minds. What I was disagreeing with you about, Luke, is New Hampshire is a self-selecting population. It's a very small population. You can't replicate the Free State Project on a nationwide level because there's a huge percent of the population, as you agree with, who do not share our values.
I disagree because if you look at just autonomy, I don't care if it's a bunch of communists wanting to live in the woods. We have examples of this with the Amish. The Amish are living by their own set of rules, without governments, without mandates, without vaccine mandates, and they're doing a lot better than a lot of other people. So if the Amish could do it,
COVID.
That's not true.
No, they are dealing with COVID. But they haven't had a significant. Cheryl Atkinson's did a great documentary about this. Yeah, it's on our YouTube channel. It's great. They are dealing with COVID. You guys are both right, and I think you're right too. At the end of the day, but they don't have a huge death rate like many people expected to. Even though they have policies where they literally drink from the same cup, they have religious ceremonies and everyone said the Amish are going to die. The Amish are going to have a huge extinction event. That didn't happen. Their death rate has stayed the same with COVID comparatively to the rest of the population. So that's a big thing. Cheryl Atkinson's documentary is really huge here. And if the Amish could do it, the Free State Project could do it, and that's victory in itself. That's victory when people say, hey, I just want to have my own kind of life, my own rules, my own autonomy.
That's right. With tyranny, non-compliance is key.
And New Hampshire has created a beacon for Bitcoin, has created a beacon for personal responsibility, for personal freedom, from homeschooling. It's becoming the shining light and example of people coming together and saying, hey, this is how I want to live. You can live there. And if people want to be communist, let them go to New York City. Let them go to Los Angeles. They have a right to live wherever they want to.
That's what I'm saying. It's not going to replicate nationwide.
It doesn't have to be.
I have an administrative thing to say. I have an administrative thing to announce to the people listening. For the super chats, at a certain point, YouTube just starts deleting super chats. So we can read some of them, but I just want to say that because I feel bad for a lot of people who are posting comments and questions. when you have a show this big, we had 110 plus, I think we had like 114 or 15,000 people watching at one time.
Oh my gosh.
YouTube just basically starts erasing the super chats.
Thank you, everyone.
But
we really give me a copy of those super chats.
But Malice,
hail to the chat.
You could live in New York City,
rock.
you could live in Los Angeles, or you could live in New Hampshire. I live in New Hampshire because that's how I choose to live.
Luke, I moved to Austin for this reason. You're preaching to the choir.
The new California.
But
you moved to the new California where all the trendies are moving into.
The point is, Tim and Alex were asking, how do we replicate this nationwide? And all I'm saying is you can't replicate the Free State Project nationwide because there's not enough people to make that happen democratically.
No, I disagree. We were just talking about how who was mentioning this? The primaries basically dictate how all the elections are being run.
Okay.
Were we talking about this? I don't think we were. But the idea is that you get a small amount of people who will vote for a Democrat, and then independents basically don't participate in primaries. So they enter the election and they're like, what are my choices? Whatever the Democrat 10% and the Republican 10% voted for. What happens if you get a Free State Project of you got a state with 1 million people, or you got a jurisdiction of 1 million people, and 100,000 are liberty-minded people who are brought together, and they all say, we are all going to vote in the Republican primary for this libertarian, and then the independent moderates have no choice but to vote for our guy.
It's that swing vote that takes over.
that's how Trump won. I mean, on the
it's how the progressive.
Scale.
It's how AOC won.
Yeah.
Nobody actually knew who or what she was.
I feel like I'm crazy. There's an enormous asymmetry because when you have those two candidates, whoever that libertarian candidate is will be demonized by the corporate press.
But that backfires now.
No, Biden won.
By fraud.
Yeah, I think you're right that we need a non-democratic solution.
And I told this to Steve Bannon. I'll tell you what the most.
Okay, well, he wouldn't win right now.
I don't think he'd win right now, but the most frustrating thing is...
They won 2 seats in Georgia.
They write an article explaining about the shadow campaign to save the election. Right. They talk about mail-in voting and how it gave them massive advantages over Republicans, and then you end up with this large populist movement spinning in circles about things they haven't proven in a year, and then instead of getting their ground game going and countering the changes to election law, they're going around screaming at each other about...
Tim's
we're
right.
engaged, Tim, in a reset war. I'm trying to get people to realize...
Is there a website for that, Alex?
The corporation is creating resetwars.com. The point is, it's the biggest thing I'm doing. It's going to launch next month. It's huge. But sure, I've changed the world a lot here, so I'm not a BSer. This is big stuff. How do we get people aware of the global corporate structure, how they're mind controlling us, instead of just receiving the propaganda? We've got a big awakened population right now. How do we get them engaged?
I would say build a decentralized parallel system, and I'll give it to you also.
Well, I'll say it's do ridiculous things like this.
Yes.
You know, I was like, hey, we're gonna do a really, really crazy show. Navigate the minefields to the best of your abilities, so they don't, chop the tree down before it has a chance to bear fruit. And I will say, Free State-like ideas. It's not perfect, but I think New Hampshire is doing something very, very powerful and positive. And I got to tell you, if we're gonna have any victories like what New Hampshire is doing is very interesting, and it can be done in other states. A small minority of politically active individuals can look at the Mises Caucus. I know the Libertarian Party is not
when
very
Dave
big.
Smith gets 15% of the Democrat of the polling numbers in 2024, and I'm the press secretary for that campaign. Right. Getting 15% in the polls is not impossible, and then things are really going to get fun.
And then what happens is, you may be in the minority, but most people will just vote for one or the other. And if you're the alternative to the corrupt machine where people are ready to vote for a ham sandwich, you're there. So I just want to say this. Here's what I want to say. Yeah. So right now, one of the things that bothers me the most, we had Steve Bannon on this show, and I think he's a very smart guy. And we did a members-only segment where we talked about fraud, and he's adamant in his belief. And I said, take a look at universal mail-in voting. Take a look. This is why I believe there is no fraud, and I believe it's a red herring that has manipulated the populists into totally losing their standing and grounding and their ability to win these battles. Because you have, in a Democrat city, look at New York, you get one housing complex with 500 units. They all get 5 universal mail-in ballots for the 5 people who live there. Mom, dad, and their 2.5 kids. The Democrat sends one activist to go door to door and hits 500 families times 5 votes each, and they can do that in a couple days, just knocking on doors as they make their way up, and they say this: did you vote yet? Your ballot is right there. Fill it out. I'll wait. Republicans have to go to rural areas where they drive through suburbs, and they can hit 5 houses on one block, and they can get 10 houses in a day.
And Republicans should focus on cities.
Republicans should focus on the rule changes that heavily advantage urban, dense centers. The Republicans should focus on the rule changes that disadvantaged Republicans. Instead, what are we getting? Trump's movement, the populists, are right now, they're talking about Venezuela and China and gun battles in Germany, and I'm like, they got him. They shut him down with the conspiracy fraud stuff, and now, because Donald Trump won in 2016 with 77,000 votes across 3 states. Sure, he did really well in the Electoral College, but it was 77,000 votes across 3 states. And so they said, if we can throw the populist movement off base with something that won't have an impact on us, we won't lose again. And they did it. A year before the 2020 election, the Republicans in Pennsylvania changed the law to introduce universal mail-in voting. We talked with Sean Parnell about this. He sued about this. They said, at first, we're going to create universal mail-in voting. Our Constitution forbids it. And they stopped because they needed a constitutional amendment to enact it. They stopped and said, okay, what do? Let's change the word to mail-in instead of absentee and pass it anyway. And when Sean Parnell and others sued over this because it was an unconstitutional change, a lower court judge said, on the merits, you will likely win. It went to a higher court who said, for not on the merits, just for standing or for it's too late. I forgot what the Latin word for too late is. They said, we're not even going to take the case. So we see an article that in Time magazine, the shadow campaign to save the election, and they explain exactly what they did. We changed all the rules to heavily advantage dense urban centers, and then Republicans not Republicans, but the populists got wrapped up in a fraud narrative that stopped them from.
There's a whole book about this. There's a whole book about. No, let me just say one sentence, Alex.
I've been behaving.
One sentence. There's a whole book about this called "Rigged" by Molly Hemingway. I know you had Mark on the show to discuss this. So if people are interested, they can read about it. Go ahead, Alex.
No, I'm just going to say, where does this all end? We're about to be at war with China. The dollar's plunging. There's massive inflation. Let's talk about the big picture. What is the American people going to do as they realize that the design collapses here and that all these corporate interests think we're too stupid to understand what's happening? To me, that's the big deal. Forget Trump. Forget Democrats. Forget, all this stuff. We are in a major sea change right now, in my view.
Alex, I think being happy, healthy, and prepared for whatever comes next is the solution, is the real resistance.
Yes.
And there's going to be a lot of turmoil, especially economically, hitting this country. As soon as COVID happened, I was like, this is not going to be about COVID. This is going to be about the economy. And we're seeing the start of this. This is only the beginning of this. And I think we're really headed for hard times. And I think the way to resist this is by having family, is by having a network, is by having a cohesive group together that is ready for whatever happens. If you're unprepared, you're weighing down your family, you're weighing down your neighborhood, you're weighing down your community. So right now, more than ever, smarten up, look at the situation that's happening in front of you, and make sure that you are ready for whatever's to come, because it's going to be a very bumpy ride.
I totally agree with that. Yeah. We should just transcend all the arguments and realize this is a global engineered collapse.
Yes, it is.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.